Yeah, that's good.
Looks good.
Yeah,
Continue.
meeting's being recorded. I don't know if y'all knew that.
We got it. All right. So we've done hoppers a couple different times, and I enjoy August because we do get into hopper season. So now if you kick the grass or the wind blows and stuff flies in, this is kind of a different take on that because, and I did not bring in the one that I used yesterday. So hoppers come into two different plays here. You can use this as a single or you can hook it up as your hopper dropper. So then you can also float on top. You can have another submerged underneath. And I would say your takes on fish or it improves your odds. So it's always good to kind of know how to handle as far as with foam and different things. And again, we've covered some of this. I'm going to actually cover a few things that we've talked about before, but if you have any questions, happy to go through. But we've also covered like what to shop for in foam, different things as far as the foam cutters, and we'll go through some of those, the advantages, disadvantages. Another thing is sharp scissors can work just as well. So a little bit on the shopping side of it is when we're referring to cutters, they all come in kind of a wood handle. You pick them up and they have different shapes in there. And the advantage is like how you would tie that in then on your hook. For those who are teaching classes, I would recommend doing a pre-cut bag for whatever patterns you're tying and have those available. And so I just usually have a whole bunch to choose from, dump them out on the table and people can choose. These things, if you've ever done linoleum printing, these things are razor sharp. And the first person not paying attention, you will definitely need Band-Aids because the ends of them, I don't even touch them. They're going to go through anything. And with these kits, then it also comes with this hard rubber, basically pad. And so you would use these by putting your foam, and we'll try to do this on a little sample here. You put your foam on your board, and then you're going to take the cutter that you want, and the end part goes towards the end on here, and you're going to press down, and it's a roll action, and it definitely works better if you press it into and then pull it up, and it's kind of like cookie cutter. That one I didn't get all the way through. Again, I would say you definitely kind of muscle into it. Comes up as a cookie cutter in here, and you can see how it's stuck inside there. And so that's the first error that people do when they're reaching for these is they go, oh, well, it's just right there. And then they reach that, and then there you go. I haven't seen stitches from it, but I've seen quite a few Band-Aids. So, again, you would come in with your bodkin and remove it. Make sure you clear that, and then you've got your foam piece to go with. That would be the downside as far as with these cutters is in a classroom setting is somebody's not paying attention or somebody looks around and that's the person you're going and grabbing Band-Aids for. So if you are working on hoppers or if you want to set up kind of a station area, I would recommend cut a whole bunch of these. You can run through them pretty quickly and then you've got everything and you're not passing these around. You can also see how I keep mine and I've got them in a bag. Well, again, your full concentration that you're grabbing from the wood end, but you can see how easily that blends when you're not paying attention. Cutters are cool. They are a lot of fun. They do give you that clean shape in there as opposed to doing a lot of scissor work. So it's something from the shopping side of it. You can find them in your local fly shops and you might pay $35 a cutter. They're expensive when you buy local. You can also find them in kits. And when you look on Amazon or some of the other different ones, it's hard to know what sizes that you're looking for. And so that's the thing too, is that sometimes it's trial by error. But the difference would be as far as when you're starting from, a piece and trying to shape it that pretty and all the way around, you're starting with just basically your rectangle square. The other thing is that with foam, The paper cutters, just the regular old school paper cutters, can cut you a bunch of sections that don't have, you know, scissor cuts where you start and stop. And so it'll give you much more clean cut on one side, and then you just go through. And I could cut all these at basically 1/4 of an inch or less than 1/4 of an inch, and then I've got an entire station set up for that, versus having to go through with your scissors, because we're all working from little tiny scissors, and then you get this little choppy thing all the way through. Somebody's going to have enough issue with that. I apologize. Sorry, I can't even figure out how to hang this up on my, there we go. So that would be something too, again, as far as like prepping for classes. For your individual workstations, again, why stop what you're doing to go back and then cut? So you saw with the bag, and then I also have other ones too, and I'll go through. It has everything from legs all the way through kind of a torso area. And I just have those handy, and then I don't have to stop and start. With a lot of different, we're just going to do kind of a quick one for tying in materials and how to get used to this. So basically, when we're talking about chubby Chernobyls, you're talking about a pattern that's laid on top of, you have nothing that tucks back up underneath. And Chris sent some great pictures of beetles that he had done today, and I'll cover that. I think we should have enough time. But you're actually doing with dubbing underneath, and then you're going to apply the foam. When we talk about foam, and you go into a fly shop and you can buy tons of different things, right? You can buy these, and they range anywhere from a 325, they'll go all the way up to 5. A lot of it, when you start looking at it, is how porous the material is. So you can see this one close up on the camera, and it's extremely porous. So it's not going to actually float. It's not going to have the buoyancy to it. Then you can get into a little bit more where it's thick, but it still has. Can you see that up on there? Out the difference as far as your foams. So the more porous one is versus the other. So the gray, that one, it's going to start catching water. It's actually not going to stay on top. Then you have something that has a few more. So all these darker or the shiny areas, those are actually holes in the foam. And all this was store-bought. Then you get to something else more like this tan, and you can see how it has almost nothing to it. So that's going to have a little bit more buoyancy on your foam, as well as like the Rainies that I have right here. And again, almost nothing. So there's very little pores to it too. So that would be the difference as far as how long a hopper is going to stay up. This one, you can see I cut some legs on that. The legs, I don't really need the buoyancy over. On the body part of it, I do. On a torso part, I do. And so I found just by trial and error which ones I prefer. The other part is, and you can see on this little one that I started, some of them, if you torque too much, it's going to actually tear on that foam. So we're not trying to put a tremendous amount of strength. We just need to get that foam to attach as close as we can to the hook shank. So as we kind of go through different techniques and things like that, that will also help of what's happening as you're tying things, and the frustration levels. You also can go up. So the yellow is a 2 millimeter. You can go up from there, and the harder it is, the more torque strength. So this one is almost like a shoe sole. It's I can't even hardly press into it and get barely a divot in there with my fingernail. And some of the other ones, you can definitely just press and you can see where it creases. And so that's going to make a difference in your tying experience as well. So when you're buying this and you feel it and you think, well, that looks like great foam, and then you kind of can press on it, you can take it out of the plastic if you're buying this in the shop. If you're buying it online, 2 millimeters probably going to be the most universal that you could get by with layering and things too. And so for my frugal shoppers like me, you can also check dollar store. You can check Walmart, whatever it is. There's all kinds of things where you're going to find foam. So this was one of those door hanger craft things that you can find at the dollar store. I'm able to cut this. I'm able to apply this. It actually has a good thickness to it. It also gives me quite a bit of relief as far as it can tell when my thread's kind of cutting in, and that's how you can see on there too. So your thread's able to apply pressure, pull it as close as it can to the hook shank. There's other options, and we've done this one before, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on. But Walmart sells these packs in their foam sheets, and they actually have an adhesive on the back. And so if you like to kind of layer different ones, you can. And what you're going to do is you're going to marry all these sheets together. And so we're going to take this purple, and I'm going to just cut a bunch of these just to show you kind of as far as a quick. Got a purple, a yellow, and a black. And the adhesive on the back of these, it'll last you through the popper, which I like. I don't have to add much more to it. So you can see I have the yellow has the adhesive on it, the purple does not, and the black does. And you can just peel off then, and you're going to apply these. And the trickiest part of this is keeping track of which one's the top and which one's the bottom. I can do the black and yellow, or the purple and yellow. I can now take this side, and I've got two areas to work from. On this, I can go black and yellow. I could go purple and black, either way, and they're all adhered together. Then I can come back in with my cutter or my scissors. And again, this will work for your day of fishing. This will work for multiple ones. Now you can come in and, you know, again, sometimes just the arts and crafts of it. And you can come in with your cutter, and there you go. So you've already tied in all of your colors that you want, and you're not having to layer in, and you can still apply that. So it gives you some different options in there. The adhesive does not break down as far as just regular use with your fly, and it gives you some different color options. I almost brought a cicada in. I don't know if you guys are getting some of these cicadas coming through, or a locust, I guess. And I actually turned it over. We're not getting a ton of them out. You can hear them, but you're not seeing too many of them. I turned it over, and I was surprised at how white the bottoms of those are, or underneath. And so again, that kind of keeps into play with all different materials that we're using. I'm going to get started on this and just kind of apply mostly again on the technique part of it, and then we'll come back and get a little bit more specific. Does anybody have any questions right now? I can't see any hands or anything. So I guess Mick's going to be in charge of hollering if somebody has a question. Or not. Or I'll just keep talking.
I'd unmute.
It's the trickiness of, all right, so I'm going to take just a tan, and I've got my thread base already on here. I have a Vivus 8/0 on my threads, and this is what I prefer. Yes, John, I'm using a white thread tonight.
Surprise, surprise.
I have a black shirt on tonight. I'm using something that's a contrast. But so on these two, and a Chubby Chernobyl is a great starter fly because it gets people introduced to dubbing. It gets people introduced to your foam, and then also applying the legs. So it's kind of a universal term. There's all different ways you can kind of address. I want something that's obviously a little bit longer than my hook shank, and I can always trim on the ends of it. And so I'm going to start in, and I've got about half a length on that. And as I come over with, now this is the part where foam, and we all know it. So you come over and you got somebody you're working with or yourself, and you're real excited about, yay, I'm going to tie hoppers. And so you go too fast, and you see how it rolls over. So instead, I'm doing what's called positioning. And I'm going to come around, I'm going to loop it, I'm going to come back around. And this is preference as far as I pull up and then I can come back and pull on the down. And again, all the material I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get that as close as I can to the hook shank. Always imagine that you're trying to get all the material as tight as you can to the hook shank. So I'm coming in, and again, I'm able to position that. I just switched bobbins and threads on here. So this one's spooling a little bit on me. We might be going to black. We will be going to black. Why fight it? Why fight it?
Why you know it.
All right. So in case anybody, oh, look at that. It's all just cleaning right off of there, and I don't even need a razor or anything.
Amy, while you're changing threads, Skip Morris was with us last Thursday, and he has got a great book out on tying foam flies. So if anybody's interested, you can get it on Amazon. So.
And I heard you bought that. I heard you bought that before the show was over.
Yes, I did. I bought the 385 tips for fishing for bass, trout, and panfish too. So.
Well, and yeah, I think I was tied up last Thursday. I wish I would have seen that, because again, I think that anytime you can learn all the different, it's like when Tim was on your video last time too, anytime, because I'm a big, if you don't have these materials, then use something else. And part of it is that you have to tie things that you enjoy tying. If you don't like to tie nymphs, then figure out how you can trade a bunch of whatever you're tying for a bunch of nymphs. But I love hearing all the different, and there's tons of different ways that people have figured out how to work with a very awkward material and get it to attach to this little tiny hook. And it is something where, as you get more comfortable with it, but any tricks of the trade. So there, I've switched out. Now I'm on a black thread. I'm going to come up over the top again, and I'm just going to position it in, and I'm pulling that down, but I'm tightening it, but I'm not rolling that. I know I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to clean on the ends part of that. And this section of it seems to kind of get people, I don't need that many as far as like an anchoring position on here, but apparently adding legs seems to be a difficult process when you're trying to make something as simple as a beetle or a chubby Chernobyl or whatever you want to call it. Leg section. So I'm using, and I've used these before on different ones too. I love the micro legs. It gives me just enough of a hint. And you can find them in a lot of different variant, as far as the white and black. You can take rubber bands. Carl was on one time about how you can twist rubber bands. Just hit it with one Sharpie, and then when you untwist that rubber band, it actually makes this whole thing. It's whatever you find. Chris had sent me.
Yeah, you can buy the replacement skirts for spinning lures too.
Yep.
And that's what I use, because there's so many different colors you can get, and they're very inexpensive.
And absolutely. And I think, and one of the things too, Chris was working on his hoppers and foam today, and he sent me, a picture of the legs, and he was trying to cut legs out of foam, I think, on that first picture, Chris. And I said, do you have any rubber bands around? And then I also know he has an abundance of daughters. And I said, or rubber bands for hair tying. So
the orange ones is rubber bands.
Okay. So, that one was. So
Yeah.
You can also find, these are like those little mini ones for mini braids and things. So you can find these, and you can cut these and make these into legs as well. So it's work with what you have. It is the difference between, and here I've heard of some people using the orthodontics, the rubber bands that they have to use.
Yep.
So again, you can cut this, and then you've got a leg. So there's a lot of different things where it doesn't have to be exactly what, but the trick on where a lot of people want to fight this material to where they need it. So instead I would say, come around, you're going to come around your thread. I'm going to make that little loop, and I'm going to come up, and I'm going to line that right to the side nearest me. I'm going to come in, I'm going to give another anchoring wrap there. I'm going to cut it. I don't know what full length I want it. So I'm going to give myself enough room to work with. And then I'm going to come and do the exact same thing. Whoops.
Sorry.
It's always something. It's always something.
Of
You guys
course
can
it
laugh.
is.
Oh, here you got one spool and thread, one leg that's going a different way. My foam's spinning. Yeah. Anybody want to talk about my new TV and also my new washer and dryer I had to get this week? Oh wait, that was pretty cool.
Super
Be
glue.
kind of one of those
super glue.
kind of one of those crappy, hey, how much money can you put out in 1 week weeks? But all right, so there I've got the other. And what I did is I go around the thread and then come up over and guide that where I want it. And again, these are all flies are impressionistic, right? So then I can anchor that in the spot. I'm going to leave those. They're going to be out of my way a little bit as I start working further up this. I'm going to move all of this up. And now is when I come in and I'm actually going to give some good anchor wraps in there. Not really, just again, to kind of stop that spin first off, hopefully. And then if you guys haven't seen these as well, as you start building materials, these are little, you can get it all back out of your way.
Yep.
So then I'm not fighting anything. These are like those little mini, there's some at the dollar store, I think too. They're hair clips. Yep. So they're hair clips. So you can get all the material out of the way. And again, think of yourselves always as new learners. Like what are the things that are aggravating? Well, if you're having to work around a bunch of this stuff, sometimes it's just as visual as moving that out of your way. And then people can see and you can learn, like what I'm working with now is all just the hook shank. And we've talked about dubbing a lot. I'll try not to go OCD on dubbing with how, and you guys have seen, you know, I have a whole little system as every time I pick up dubbing, I have to do it a certain way. For color wise, I want to go more on the olive or the natural with this one. When I think of hoppers, I think of turning into fall. So when we think of fall, we think of kind of more of the muted colors, not the bright colors. It's more on the natural side of it. But could I use orange underneath here? Absolutely, I could. It's dealer's choice. I mention that often. The one thing that I want is that when I tease this out, I want it to look buggy. I don't want it to look all matted down and flat. And again, there are so many different variations of this and all the different packs and everything. And you guys have shown my color coordinated. And for those who are new on here, and if you think that I don't have OTC, yes, I do. I have it all color situated because at a glance, I have to be visual. So I want to use what I see, but I'm going to use it kind of more on the fine side of this. And I'm going to grab one tuft, set it down, and the other tuft, set it down. And then here's where this side of it, and for those who've been on here before, so I have it sandwiched together. Imagine the old silly putty or gum or whatever you want to. Pick up one piece, lay it on the top. Pick up another piece, lay it on the top. And you just continue to do this to knead it together. And what it does is it breaks apart some of those little, the pieces of fibers that don't, but as you're pulling it, it's separating out. So pull it out, separate it. Now I have the color that I want to work with. And if I looked at this and said, you know what, I want to add in, let's add in an orange so that you guys can kind of see the difference on that. So here I have just a burnt rust color, which is awesome. But I want to add some flash to this because it's a little bit flat looking. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I just start that whole process again. And I have the coffee grinder over here. And yes, I do make dubbing and different things too. I'll blend it. But it's always this process for me. And it's always just pulling apart those fibers because I want them as small as possible. And so I've got, is Bob Betts on this call tonight? Bob Betts, who just changed my whole world, that told me I was putting on dubbing wrong. Mick, I know you're muted probably, but anyway, it was really pretty. It was really pretty. It was really pretty funny. He's like, "You're putting on dubbing backwards." Like, oh, I've only been doing that for 4 or 5 years. So I'm I'm going to pull out a section of this, and this is the underside. So this is what's going to hit the water again, profile wise. And I've got just a clump here. I could easily do a dubbing loop. I want this big, buggy, ugly. So it's going to be a little bit more exaggerated, pulling out a few fibers that it goes up and it starts more laying in parallel to that thread. And I think Tim Flagler said it the best when he was on his. The other thing is that you tend to get working on it and you think you need to put all of this all on your thread. And that's not the case at all. We get to build this. We're kind of making the cake. So, and the bad thing, this is where the cameras come into play. If I knock you guys off the table, sorry. And here I'm able to just build it, go up to an area here, come back a little bit to overlap. And it always goes to the same profile. So that tapered look, so you want it a little bit more on the full side on the front. And this is the part where I'm sorry, you guys are seeing me in my action. Every time I pick up dubbing, I always do that process. I don't count it. I don't do all that stuff, but I always just, it's just one more thing. So I come back up again with my fingertips and I'm rubbing this towards, I don't use any wax. I don't lick my fingers. For those teaching classes, please break that habit because yeah, we're just there. Please break that habit. You can use chapstick. You could use your dubbing wax if you wanted to do that. I typically only use that for dubbing loops, but please stop with licking your fingers and doing that during the winter times. Static guard, you can spray that on your fingers and that works great. Kind of breaks down the static on there too. Some folks have naturally oily hands where they can do that, but a little bit on your fingers goes great. But that whole licking materials, probably not good with where we are in the current. So there's my dubbing. Got a little bit of a taper going, and now I can let go of this portion of it and I can pull that forward. And all I'm going to do on this one is, again, my positioning. So I haven't creased down. I have enough crease where I can see where I was. My next one, and you can either pull up or down, depending on what you want to do on that. And you've still got enough room up at the head here. I'm going to add in my legs, hopefully a little bit better than these last guys. And so you see the same process as we're building it. Come around, and I'm creating kind of that loop within. And then I pull on my thread and I just position those right at my 45. So it's absolutely right at my perpendicular. And one position in, I can cut. And then that one's too small to use. So I'll grab another portion of leg and got that rubber bandy kind of thing. And come back over. Clear that. Come up. And again, same thing. So it's easier to work on top. So now I've got that position in. I'm going to come right back at my 45 right there. So it's positioned on that side. Come in. And I've anchored in. That's all you really need to attach your legs. You don't need a lot of tension or anything else. So now we've got kind of those fun, the legs are in and we've got the dubbing underneath. And now as far as with the finish and classic on the Chernobyl side of what everything looks like. So it has an indicator or wing. And on this, I'm going to use calf tail. I'm not going to go into the whole calf tail, how you buy it, all the other stuff, as far as we can do that another time. I do prefer the calf tail on this versus the parapost that we've used before. I know Bonnie cord's been talked about as well for this, and because it's so unnatural with all the materials we're using, I just like to throw in some natural materials. So you can see this calf tail has not a whole lot of life left in it. With the top portion of it's usually not very workable. It has a lot of cowlicks to it and it won't straighten out. And so what you'll get is that your wing's on and it's going to one side or another. You want to actually pull further down on the calf tail. I know that the one time when I talked about this, and I don't think Walt's on either, I think he's traveling. And I mentioned this and he thought I was talking about cat tail. No, this is calf tail. It comes in a variety of different colors. This is also a sight indicator for me. And so, but I want something that doesn't have that curl to it. So this is fairly straight. This is actually a great piece. Got a lot of use out of this. I'm gonna come in and I'm just gonna cut as close as I can. So I've got a little nub right there, and I don't stack this. I don't do much more than clean out the parts that don't need to be in it. I don't do anything in my stacker, and this is the part that I pulled out, meaning it didn't make the cut. So it was shorter than my fingertips. On this, you could go in and cut it if you wanted to. Does not matter at all. My wing, I want it about the length of my hook shank. So I'm going to tie this in right where I've already got positioning on here, and I'm up on top of the foam, kind of right by those legs. And these are, again, it's a balance between your anchor and not tearing that foam in half. So you can come in, you've got it anchored in position. With calf tail or many things, when we're working with deer and a lot of other parts of it too, is these things are slick as far as the natural materials on here. So why not save this fly? And you guys are probably, you know this, I've done this before. Come on in, do your whip finish here, because if the calf tail comes out, you have not lost your entire fly.
Nope.
Okay. So the positioning on this, it's very slick to work with. Could I cut this part off? Absolutely. I could come in here. Could we add in some flash? All kinds of things. This is, again, dealer's choice on this as far as how you want to do this. Classic on, you know, kind of coming back and then adding a cap to it. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to cut this a little bit more fine. Going to give a couple more wraps in here just as far as a finish. But I'm not compromising your foam. So one of the things is that dubbing doesn't hold your fly up. Foam doesn't. It's a positioning, and it's like aerodynamics. It's all going to work together. But if I keep smashing down the foam, you've lost all the qualities of foam. If you keep tightening down on your dubbing, you've kind of lost all the qualities of that as well. And so it's something where it's just that perfect balance. So I made something about 4 times the size yesterday, and yes, it actually caught fish, which was crazy because I was just trying to do a bunch of these on top and had this whole layered back kind of looking thing. And some silly bluegill came up and he just managed to catch on the hook under here. You can see under here, my gap is totally clear. I just laughed at him. I took him off the hook and threw him back in. I was like, well, at least you were brave. But you can see my gap is clear on here. Everything is on top. So again, when it sits in the water and it's going to stay on top, your hook is clear for a take underneath, but mostly it's going to be a take full mouth over the top. This is perfect on something that also has a barb on it to drop your dropper off of it. And we can kind of talk about that too. But I have nothing else going on. Very simple fly, very simple to tie, but I've used 3 different materials or 4 and a lot of different techniques. So it's a great beginner fly on this too. And you can basically go straight forward on this, cut it off. I do like the classic of coming over the top and coming through on this. And again, a positioning on, you can add high eyes on here if you wanted to. You can come in with markers and this is where it becomes kind of that arts and crafts. And again, nice and cinched in here. And then I'm going to clear and I'm going to go back up towards the front. And so I'm up at my hook eye right here. And this is where I would come in. You can do your half hitch to hold it in, but on all finish flies, I always prefer the whip and come in and clear it back out of the way. And again, it's not picture perfect from the standpoint of it's not running all the way back up or impeding over your eye. So you should be able to easily thread this, change your flies, different things too. And on this, again, come in. I don't have any cement on here. I don't have any glue on here. I don't use any UV. Now you can, and the one thing that I have found is because if you add UV on here and then you have a float quality to that of whether or not it'll stay up longer or not stay up longer. We talked about this a lot, and let me see if I find. So the quick dry, this I can actually put over, and it will seal all the porous on the, and it does not add any weight to it. So the buoyancy on this is absolutely does not make one difference, and it's not like the UV heavy. It will hold up. And so again, you could do under, you could do over, and it dries instantly. It has very low odor on there, but it will actually help just with one little seal. It's a very, very thin on the top coat, and you can come back. I'm not going to cut on that since I already just put that on there, and it's kind of dry, but I'm not going to ruin my scissors. But you can come back then, now that you have this kind of finished, reposition your legs where you want them, get everything. And again, it's impressionistic because what we want is that first hit on the water and it looks like a bug in distress. It's not going to float. These are great for kind of faster waters where there's not a lot of decision time. And they also work really, really well near banks, near reeds and different things. Now you can come back in and you can trim to whatever you want the tail to look like. And then also on your top wing, or you could go vice versa if you just want to do a little V, but you get a little bit of arts and crafts going there. And you can come in with a Sharpie now, and you can see again. So we've done two things is by getting this material up, it actually created that pocket as well. And then we've got another pocket here that could help as far as trap air and keep that up on top as well. So it's not necessarily just the foam doing all the work. It's the dynamics of it. And that would be it on that one, just to give you kind of an idea as far as, again, a quick, buggy looking. Now I'll do a quick beetle as well. Anybody have
Cool.
anything? This is so weird. Always, I tell you guys this, it's like, okay, and nothing. And I'm not looking at the screen, so I can't see any expressions or anything. I'm like, so I'll just keep talking to myself. Probably nothing unusual about that, is there?
Nope, nothing at all, Amy.
I know. So I showed a couple different, I'm gonna see if I've got one, and Chris, you can show on your beetle, because that was the second one was awesome.
The
But
white one?
And I sent back, and only a fly tire would know this, right? And I said, that is like the perfect beetle butt. And he sends back and he goes, thank you, but only we would be talking like that, as far as with different flies that we're tying. But he had, it was just great. The shape, just really paid attention to the proportions of it. And so when we talk about, and right now, beetles are hot in our area. They're fishing, they're catching everything too, and it's just a quick hit. This is a little bit bigger size on the hook than I would generally use. And
What size hook is that, Amy?
this one is a size 8, so it's
Oh
much
my
bigger.
gosh.
And
82,
well,
yep.
Yep. And when I sent out and I said all purpose, and I'm sure people were like, what? It's all purpose. Anyway, there really are all purpose. I am not necessarily a Firehole name brand, can only use those. I pulled out this other one that was a hopper dropper. I don't even know who makes this. So I would say, as far as look for the shape that you're wanting and the size of the fly, always keep in mind the gap. And so this one has a gentle bend to it. With that all purpose, and it's 2x long, so it's longer than the normal, but you can see how if you shorten this up, it would give you the same profile on there and be easy to work with this style. And I'll use kind of this brighter yellow, and let's see if I actually give a little bit more. Oh, here's one. So similar. So on your beetle portion of it, we're actually going to try to capture that more narrow part down. And then when you fold it back up over, that's what creates the shape on it. So I'm going to use this one in the orange, and my hand is sitting on top of my vise. It's almost resting right there because I don't want it to roll. And as I advance forward, it's trying to. So again, thumbnail kind of in place. I'm going up in a candy cane. I'm coming back down, and it just, that foam kind of ripped on there, but we'll see if I can recover it a little bit. So this portion of it where I was able to capture that in, that's my tag basically. So that's staying in place here. If you like super glue, this might be the place where you would want to use it. Keep in mind, again, you don't want to super glue over your vise. It's not very fun to spend the next 3 hours taking super glue out of your vise, but you could use it and it's not going to affect how much it floats. But this part, because it's not causing it to float or sink, this is one that you can actually mash down. Again, we're trying to get materials as close as we can to the hook shank and get them in play. Now on this, I'm actually going to use a dubbing loop on this, and I'm just going to go for a bright, kind of obnoxious. You guys have a color choice tonight? Anybody? First dibs?
Orange.
What color would you like? Orange? All right, so we're going to use a really
Lime green.
shiny.
It's like a rust
Orange.
color or copper or something.
It is. That's the one. Because again, I'm thinking fall. And so with your dubbing tools, and there's a lot of different ones. There's manual ones that you can just spin in your hands. I use the turbo, and this is one because it has a brass bearing in here, and you just spin it and it does a lot of the work for you. With your dubbing loop, big part of this is actually getting all of your stuff prepped ahead of time, because you don't want to make your loop and then be trying to work from 2 fingers. So instead, I'm going to lay out what I want. And this has a lot of fibers. They're really long. And I'm going to take that just for the flash portion of it. And I'm going to add in something else. Too many choices. I'm gonna add. I know. I'm like a kid in the candy store, aren't I? All right. And because orange is kind of an abrasive color, so I'm actually going to come in, and this is one that I had mixed, but it has a little bit of that darker, so it'll provide the appropriate shading to this, because orange is orange, right? It really is. So I want it to look more natural. And so again, you can see on this, and this actually is a great example as far as all these long stringy ones. And then when you start with your kneading that, and you can see how it starts to become looking like it's all one material. And it starts kind of doing different things. It just looks like it's different. I don't know. You actually just have to play with it to get it. But all these are synthetic. There's no natural material in this. And so again, when we talk about, that some people think that dubbing helps things float, it doesn't. It's kind of a whole combination of, again, the shape of and what you're doing. But dubbing alone will not make your fly float. So more dubbing does not mean better. But you can see this is kind of just a big sparkly mess right now. So I can set that aside with my dubbing loop. I've got a couple inches of thread. I'm gauging how far from one end to the next. And just from experience, and this is one of those you'll have sometimes where you do a dubbing loop and it's super long, and other times you just kind of go, yeah, I don't need it that long. So I'm going with about almost 4 inches. Come down, I'm going to put my finger in. I'm going to go right back up where I was, and I'm going to advance my thread all the way up near the hook guide, and I'm going to just keep it there. So now I've got this loop, and probably black on black. Hopefully you guys can see that, but there's a loop there. This is where you come in with your dubbing wax. You can use chapstick. You can use a lot of different things. Dubbing wax, one of the things is just, you have to believe that it's already on your thread. If you go and touch it and go, oh, you're going to be wearing that for a while, because it just is really hard. It doesn't come off your fingers very easily. So with your dubbing wax, you just touch it, go up and down, and that's it. And that's all you want to, again, if you go back and start touching it, then guess what? You pick up your pile of dubbing right here, and it keeps sticking all to your fingers, and it's more on your fingers than it is in your lip. So now I've got this pile. When dubbing loops in the first time and everybody tries to just like and put it all in there, nope, same thing you're doing. You're just trying to layer it in. And so you can work with this and pull it out so that it's a section about that length. Go in and you're just laying it all in that oval. Now I come back in with the Amazing Turbo and I'm going to hook both ends of that. And now I'm going to spin it.
Yeah, I
And
gotta
again,
get
this
one
is
of those.
it's big and ugly, and that's exactly what I want on this. So see how it's so much different than the other, as far as just kind of a fine. Now this is where your hackle pliers come
Yep.
in. You're going to go straight to the end, and now you're going to cut between your hackle pliers and your tools. Hang on to both ends, otherwise this will unravel and you will drop your hackle tool on your foot. They are brass. So here again, I'll try not to knock you guys off the table with the camera. Come in and you can see almost how just crazy. See how exaggerated that is over the top.
That's
I'm
a
going to come
mess.
in, push it. I know it is a mess. I'm going to come in behind, come up, behind again. So just like how we would tie in, but every tie in there is I'm trying to anchor it as close as I can. Come in, always cut at the top, right? That's just good practice. If you cut underneath, you'll only do that a few times
Mhm.
before you
Thread.
before you cut your thread. But see how buggy that looks underneath? And it's still not really as far as where my hook is and my shank. I'm not impeding underneath. It's not like having too long a hackle. This is like buggy out to the side, just more on the shape. So now I can come in and I can drop back. I'm going to go back here a bit. And if it's too buggy, you can actually like pull out some of the fibers. You can, I wouldn't cut them, just pluck them basically. And so on here, now I can come up and my positioning on here again with the foam coming around. I'm going to make that crease. And so I should be able to take away my thread and I can still see that crease. So it's enough. Come back. And then you anchor it in. And you can see how the body on that creates that beetle. And so here, I could either come in and just cut this off. You could fold it back. You could do other things with it. It's almost, again, it's up to you as far as the shape that you want. It almost looks like a little coffee bean or pod, just on the shape of that. You could add in as far as your calf tail or again, some of the para. You could add legs to it. You don't have to add legs, but at least you have where it tucked in at the end and it pulled it forward. It made a nice little dome basically over the top. And so on this, I'm just going to come in because things always jump on us.
Yep.
Right when you don't want them to. So I'm going to use my half hitch. So my bodkin on the reverse side with the hole in it, I'm going to roll it up here. Well, if I do this and create a gap, it's going to pop off of there. Instead, I can come in and you're actually going to roll your tool up. You could add hackle to this. You could do anything else you wanted to. We had talked about, or what Chris said, he had added in legs, you know. So now that I've got my foam secure, I've got everything in place. I could come back in and add legs in. And so if I wanted to do some orange legs, I could add those in now too. So again, different color. I tend to go for the smaller size on these. Come in, I'm going to go around. Put it in place. And again, these can be any color. Black right now is really kind of hot. If you use a black, I'm going to show how to put like a little sight indicator, because on those grayer days, when you're having a hard time seeing, that's like, where is my fly? Sometimes just having a little bit of the white coming through. So again, on this, so you got that in place as far as the legs on there. And now I can just come in with a scrap piece of foam and just, I'm not going to pull out white, but imagine this is white on here. I could come in And I'm just coming in and basically giving myself something visual to see. This has no aesthetic value to the fly at all. It's a sight indicator. So I can come in, pinch that off. And again, I can either, tuck that up to me personally. I'm just going to come in and cut it off that way. There's my beetle. And then again, on all, I prefer whip. It is, get it back up out of the way, pull it back, come in on your whip and finish. No glue, no adhesives, nothing else, and you are done.
Cool.
Yeah, I tied
There
two
you
of those
go.
while he was tying the other one.
Did you?
Yeah.
Show yours, Chris.
I got, let me pick it up. I got this little guy. Oh, well, this light's probably messing it up. This one I just tied is got the orange on it so I can see it. Black foam body. I used the peacock curl instead of dumbing.
Yep.
And then I got this white and black one. Same thing. The
Excellent.
first one I sent through though, I was not happy with it. And now I even changed the hook. I even changed the hook too because I didn't like this hook after I tied it. I took a rubber band and, well, two of them and cut them. I just didn't like how the legs were looking. I was like, oh, that's kind of crappy. So anyways, I changed my hook size and changed to the different hook and now I like it. So I got probably like 5 of them sitting here. Yeah, 5 of them.
And again with that, and yeah, it was funny because when he sent the first leg one, I couldn't tell all of it on how like 2 were going one way and 2 were going the other way on the rubber band legs. It's like, and I thought Chris actually was tying foam on for his legs. But I think it's trial and error. And I remember saying a couple of years ago, I'm like, I don't like to tie hoppers. Well, now it's almost a go-to, especially this time of year and the hotter it's getting. And if you can get out after or before some winds are kicking up, because that's where everything's going, right in those. So fish it close to the bank. It is, make a lot of them because you might lose a few. Because if you're really, dancing on the edge there, you're going to lose a few. You're going to catch them in the cattails. You're going to catch them in the reeds. You're going to catch them in some of those leaves. It is just have them, just be ready, or fish with Chris because apparently he can get them all out of trees that I've never. I don't know what it is. I've seen him hung up. I've seen him hung up more times where I look and I go, did you really get out of there with it? He goes, yeah, still on here. So either that or his knots are amazing.
No, that's years of regular fishing, getting them caught up in the tree.
Well,
10-pound test line that you're using.
It could be. And, we never check that stuff, and then finally when they come over and they're like, this won't even go through the eye on a hook anymore. Do you think I need a new leader? It's all it's all trial and error. And I think that's the thing too, is just figuring out with the foam. I steered clear of foam mostly because I like natural material so much, and it takes you a minute to get used to, how these look. But you can do your wings in deer hair. I know Mike, who's on from Knoxville, and he was like, I have deer hair. And you can easily, you can embellish these. I have some where as you building them and you're like, oh my gosh, that's just pretty. These are the basic ones. These are going to be good pretty much year round, any color, and they're great. They're great beginner flies. And then as you start building on your technique, but mostly it's rolling the foam becomes one of the big issues. And when do you add in materials? So my only other thing is that, the last thing that you're wrapping up is the first thing that you tie in. So, first in is the last one out and things like that. So as you kind of get more used to it, it's just practice. But that's all I have on foam.
Any suggestions or techniques? I had a hopper that had some wings made out of feather or something else, but I found that it actually threw a gink on it before I had fished it. And wanting to fish upside down. The feathers were soaking it up and rolling it over, and it took quite a while before the foam soaked up enough water, whatever. Eventually, it finally was sitting right in the water. But for
Yeah.
quite a while there, that foam just wanted to pop on top. So you got to be careful in the construction. And I don't know if there's anything in particular you can do when you to avoid that or ensure that which side's up.
And I think that's actually where the dubbing, so again, kind of on the weight of, that's actually where your dubbing comes into play. And then also the construction part of it, and not all hoppers or Chernobyl or any of that stuff, not all of them have a little bit of dome to catch that. But I'll switch over real quick. And I haven't caught, this was the one I was messing around on Saturday with, and it was something where I thought, I don't know, I just needed kind of a mind break on. So I thought, well, what's the craziest stuff I can pull? And so I cut some, and I just started, and I know I had mentioned as far as hooks and things. And so what I was fishing with this weekend, because I did my little trial and error, and hey, will this work? And I know we get stuck into, oh, you can only have certain. So I hit Walmart, and I got both of these, and guess what? They both work great for hoppers. They have a huge gap. They're really inexpensive, and you get 40 for $4. So for a hopper, yeah, I would hit the Aberdeen. As far as just being able to have that gap and be able to work with, and I really did. I just kind of went through the cutter, and I just kept using different shapes. What I also went with, and this is not hackle, this is not the chenille. So this is what they call that eyelash yarn. And I know we've all seen it, and I just like, well, I wanted that super buggy, crazy look. And so what I did with this is I tied it in, and you go under. And Roger, back to your part of that, is because since it's a yarn and it has more of that cotton in there, it actually helped and kept all of this craziness where every single time it kind of landed on. And I was using the Aberdeen on that. I don't even go back in and clean this up, because I'm going to be working all the way down that. And every time I can keep more material in there, it might anchor it a little bit longer. But then I went in with this, and like on this tail too. I mean, I'll have to show you guys a picture of this, because it was the biggest, ugliest thing. And what was, so I either made this on, it was crazy looking. So I think I either made this on Friday night or maybe Saturday at some point, but it floated in water, because I've told you guys I do the water test, right? So everything I'm making, I'm putting them in water, I throw it in the cup, and I do. It's not like this gentle, like, oh, I hope it floats. I take a cup and I chuck it at that, and that's what my kitchen counter looks like, to make sure and see what it does. And it floated for 24 hours. And that was untreated. That was with nothing on here. Now, I didn't shake it and do all that stuff, but I have pretty good confidence going out on the water of it was going to do what I imagined it to do. But it had, so back to this eyelash stuff. So I took this around just like you would put on your other like flash. This thing was, I mean, unbelievably, where I'm sure people walking past were like, what is that fly? And I was just up at the local park, because that's where I test everything. And then I get every little kid follows me, and I saw a kid catch a catfish, and that was pretty cool. So I just, you can cut this and you can reapply it every time. You can also kind of work this back. So I'm actually going to just tuck this piece out of my way. And now I'm going to come in again. I'm literally just pulling scraps. I came in with this, cinch it down, and I'm working this all the way up. Now I know when I cinch it in too tight, I'm compromising. Like this part up at the front doesn't float anymore, because I've smashed it so much that it doesn't have the quality. And then this is very similar. It was ridiculous. but how fun, again, if you're just having a crazy night tying and you're kind of going, oh, I have brain lock or I don't know what to do. I don't know. These can always work well for your hopper droppers. So another 3 wraps on there. Come in, I'm going to kind of anchor that again. And you can come in with another, color. You could do, whatever you want to, but all I was doing was layering all these, and it had red and yellow, and I could spot that thing, 50 yards out, I could spot it. So that's the part too, where again, it looks just crazy. This I had no intention of catching anything with. I only just wanted a really, really good hopper because I was working droppers. And so it's just a matter of, letting somebody just turn them loose on some of this and have fun with it. Sometimes, it's just a matter of like a color might do something for you. And you're just kind of going, okay, well, let's see if that one works. And knowing how to use the material. So same, I could cut it with my cutters, or it's just a matter of applying, get this guy back up out of the way. So I'm going to kind of help it. And then I'm coming in. And again, you're coming in with a lot of tension to hold that right in place so that it's not rolling. So the eye clear on there. You can come back in and cut that to whatever shape you want. So, and then I can finish it off. So you'd almost use something like this or even your other, materials. This yarn did not pick up a lot of water. And it's not synthetic. It's actually a cotton base. So that was what I was testing, is what this did to offset, but it did keep it upright. And it did not, it didn't want to kind of upend this. So
Man, that thing is
there's my ugly. I know it, but I'm telling you, you could, and mine had legs on there and everything. I mean, besides just this material, and it was light enough material that it did not impede at all on the hook gap, which is something where, again, we look at, because if it's going to get in the way, you're going to have a lot of missed hits.
Amy, I want to see you take that to Montana next year and show it to the guides and fish it.
Oh, my God, yes, John.
So
I can see it now.
Yeah, big time.
I'm
Especially
gonna have
maybe
to I'm gonna have to think of a really good name of it. No, I'll get the other one out of my car. My pack's still in my car. I'll get the other one out, and you're gonna look at that and go, oh, because it was all tans. It was tan and black and red is what I did with this crazy this stuff. And for some reason I just kept thinking no. And then just at the end when I thought, well, I'll give it a try. Anyway, it was fun, because that, to me, that's what tying different flies and having that part of it where you can, we get so much into what you can only use. And I don't know, I got a couple bass. I had lots of bluegill, but I had a silly bluegill that actually thought that was his lunch. And I mean, I picked it up and I'm looking going, are you kidding me? So it just depends. I mean, that's what I'm out there doing, is just, trial and error. And
Hey,
so,
hey, Amy, I got a name for your fly.
oh
The Hoppin'
no.
Amy.
Wait, is it gonna be like the yellow Sally that I was tying on that one, and then Carl couldn't remember the name of it, so then he kept calling it the yellow Amy, whatever. But and that's one, yeah, that's one of my favorite, and hands down, a caddis pattern and natural stuff, that's always my favorite. But I mean, again, the foam stuff, it kind of helps. You don't have to treat it as much with your gank or anything too, so it's kind of
Disney
fun.
Amy.
And
The Disney Amy. There you go. The Disney Amy. That'll do it.
I don't know. It's gonna have some name. I might have to. Well, I'll put one up that you guys could actually vote on. That's not this thrown together, and then you guys can come up with a name with it. And yes, I will take it to Montana, and yes, I will fish it in front of all those guys,
There you
and I will
go.
catch it. I will
I
catch.
should probably outfish them.
Oh,
What are you saying there, Chris?
We certainly.
You always outfish me.
What about Santa?
I don't know.
Or are you
Yes.
not going to be going in August now?
My flight is not canceled yet, but no, we are not doing Freedom Ranch this year.
At all?
Right now I've heard that they might keep 7, 8, and 9, or no, 8, 9, and 10, but it all depends on the forest fires out there.
Wow,
So,
Big
yep.
time.
that's too bad.
Yep. Yeah, and actually Rachel, who's a dear friend of mine, she's within 2 miles of that. So there's a lot of thoughts and prayers to that group and that community. First off, I don't disagree with it. I mean, first off, it wouldn't be the trip that we're planning when you talk about that kind of smoke and that kind of thing. But the other side is, you know, we're not going to infringe on a community that has done so much for us and show up just, it looks greedy. So I was in agreement for that, but it's year 2 of it sucks. It's next year will be better on that part of it. But you know, again, we don't need to put anybody, we've just spent the 1.5 years doing that. We're not going to put anybody at risk on this. And the highway is still open, but that could be, it changes from minute to minute, but the highway getting in is the only way in and out. And when they close that, obviously it changes the whole scenario on things. So maybe more local fishing. That's what I have to say.
Hey, come on up to Nebraska. We'll go carp fishing in the Great Plains Bonefish
I
International.
was
out
just
in
gonna say
Oklahoma.
the same thing, John. Yes, absolutely.
We need to do that. And now, you know, I mean, that's the thing is I think actually just like what we talked about with the virtual side of it is this has brought, you know, our programs closer together. This is there's not bad that's happened. I think it's something we are still going full charge ahead. I mean, as far as we're still anticipating being in phase 5 by October, which would mean back to the overnight trips and things like that. So it's all a very close possibility.
Wait.
And on that note, guess what time it is for me tonight?
Chow time.
It is BLT night.
It's Olympic time. It's the Olympics are
Oh,
Keep time
And see-
flying. I ain't eating no BLT.
I
Amy?
love BLT. I
Amy,
can hear a voice. I can't see who it is.
yes,
Charles.
Amy, it's me.
There you go, Charles.
I still have a trip to Costa Rica waiting for you. 10 days, I'll put the spade.
So the backstory, just so nobody thinks anything's weird's happening there, Charles. Is that, so when we were doing all this test on activities, and I think Charles was trying to see if I was asleep at the wheel. But Charles would put in his test activities as that he was going to Costa Rica, that he was going to all these different things with the CRM. Anyway, it would get me laughing every time because then as I would hit denied, but he was trying to see if I was paying attention. And then all of a sudden I'd be like denied. But it was very creative. He was all over the world with where he was traveling with participants. It was awesome. And it absolutely made me laugh. So that's why he's saying I still got a trip in there. You probably do still have a trip in there because after a while, Charles, I was like, go to town. Just keep putting them in.
Oh, I will, trust me, I will.
All right, all. Well, have a great week. Anybody
Yeah.
have any requests for next Monday? We I don't know. What would you guys? We haven't. Let's see, Roger. You're always good for requests. What do you got? He's got to think. He's got to think.
Deer hair rats, Amy. Do a deer hair
Deer-
rat.
Deer hair rat. I got a deer hair rat somewhere.
I tied a couple mouses.
Those are fun to fish in at night when it's hot like this time of year on the lake.
I've got a splinter mouse, which is still back in the foam part of it, but I have my mouse little wall. I've got several mice looking at me. All right, so deer hair rat, huh? I'll have to think on that one.
Would you like us to send the material to you, Amy? We got plenty, God knows.
Okay. Well, I will. Let's see. We'll think on that. So deer hair rat, maybe. Are you wanting? Is it spun deer hair, Mike, or is it?
Always fun to hear. It's the only way to make it solid where it's not going to fall apart. And it makes it challenging. You get to do some sculpting. You should be able to knock that out in an hour, Amy.
Yeah, we've done game changers in an hour, so yeah, we can do some.
Yeah,
we
and that's
can-
a long one, a game changer. So it'll be a fun one. That'll be something I'll break out my stuff and I'll sit at the bench and tie along with you.
Did you tie one tonight with us?
I've been tying since this morning, early this morning. I'm taking a disabled Navy veteran up into the mountains tomorrow on a guided trout trip. So I spent the day tying some foam flies and stimulators for him this evening.
Cool.
Outstanding. Send some pictures.
Will do.
All right. Well, good luck. Be safe tomorrow too. All right. So
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
work
Y'all
on
take
that.
care.
Hey, take it easy, man.
All right.
Thanks
See
for
you guys
having
next
me.
week.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Headlines,
Bye.
y'all.
Thank you, Amy.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.